What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today we're going to be talking about the two preban system and why, if it was implemented into RTA, it might actually end up causing more harm than good, and of course what could be something that I could see that would make this less of an issue and could even make it so the two preban system could even be something that would be beneficial. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and just go server, link down in the description. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So first, let's talk about RTA this season. In particular, it's one of the seasons that is going to be called something that's called a whale season. It definitely is a season that benefits players that have more of the new MO heroes and more of the limited heroes more than any other season previously, right? It is a very, very kind of wallet type meta, as well as it's one of the metas where you have some very high priority picks that if you don't have access to these heroes, it can actually be very hard for you to really compete. So what a lot of people are saying, it's okay. RTA right now, clearly there's a lot of problem units that's causing this meta, that is pushing units away, and there's clearly has to be a way to try to fix it because Smoggy has already said there is going to be no nerfs. Ideally, of course, Smoggy will just look at the top heroes and then kind of modify them a little bit, but they already said that that's not going to happen for a variety of reasons, so that's out of the table. So what else can you do? Well, the other thing you can do is actually going to be the two prevent, and this is something that not a lot of people may know, but it's actually already in the game, right? It's just something that it's not actually already there. So if you go to a room right now, you can actually put the two prevent system, and you actually can go in and set it to have two prevents. And the way that the two prevents would work is that you are prebanning two heroes at the very start of the screen, and both players will do that. Now, I have played around with this a lot, and there has been tournaments that have run this, as well as the Epic 7 tournament that they ran last year also did have the two prevent system, and the system actually has some issues, but it also has some strength. So first, let's talk about both and the main reason to why it may not be something good. So first, let's start with the negatives. Why is it something that could be negative, right? You're thinking, King Blair, I can ban more of the problem units. That means I can ban a Ravi, and I can ban AOL, or I can ban Celilius and Mediator Cowrick. I don't have to deal with them. Well, the thing is, there's going to be two major things that are not going to be that great for a two prevent system. That is something that has to be worked around. The first thing is going to be the fact that not everyone has a large unit pool, right? That's just a fact of life. When we look at the contested heroes, you start dropping off significantly more once you get to like the 8th hero, right? And not that many people, especially when you're just getting into Epic 7. RTS already has a very high barrier to entry for people to actually enter, both because of gear and because of units. So now if you're adding two prevents to the mix, if someone had built a Ravi, well, now the Ravi is going to be banned a lot of the times, and they're going to be further behind. And usually, for the average player, it will take them a month to get a unit to 6-star, and to get geared, that could take up to 2 months, right? So it is going to be something that's going to take a very long time, and adding more prevents means less heroes are being played, which means that you need to have more heroes build, which in turn means that there's going to be a bigger barrier to entry to Epic 7. That is the biggest complaint that I've heard for the two prevent system, is the higher amount of units that are going to be banned, right? That which means you have to have more units to accommodate for the fact that they're not going to be there anymore. The other side, and it's one that's not actually discussed that often, but it's something that we think about a lot when you actually look at match histories, is going to be the fact that you could very, very aggressively target ban, right? So let's say, for example, in this situation right here, I really struggle against Angel and Angelica as a player, right? Very, very hard. She would almost always be my prevent, right? But if I had two prevents and I knew I had first pick, I would actually ban Violet. Why? Because for this particular draft that I run, this always happens. And I could go back through every time I've used this type of draft, and sometimes it's not the Lion, sometimes it's Rimuru, sometimes it's a Ravi, right? It depends on the situation. But 10 out of 10 times, if I run this draft, the last pick is almost always going to be Violet. But if I get two prevents, well, I already took out the unit that I struggle with, I can just take out the other one. On the other side, let's say that I had first pick. Or second pick, right? I could now pre-ban Celilius and Rimuru, and if the other player didn't have Mediator Cowrick and didn't ban it, I get essentially an uncontested Mediator Cowrick for Bruiser, right? And this goes even to something like Cleave. Let's say I was trying to cleave, right? Let's say I was using a rank cleave. If I was trying to do the rank cleave, I could pre-ban Belian and another high priority target unit, like let's say Arby, right? Let's say I might cleave struggle against Arby, right? Those two prevents would make you hyper focused into to a point where you take away almost all your counters, right? And doing that, there are a lot of heroes that if you take away all their counters that there are to those units in the game, and the counters that you start putting are less known, A, that adds to the problem that you need a bigger unit pool to actually participate in the game, and B, it creates a situation of a must-ban situation. You can say the same thing for AOL. Assuming she's not banned, you could pre-ban Mediator Cowrick and Conqueror Lilius. Now the opponent has no way to deal with AOL reliably, right? They can't cleave you, or you could do Ran and Mediator, right? You could do Ran Mediator, and now it's like, okay, what are they gonna do against your AOL, right? You could hyper focus those bans to make it to a point where you get situations where a draft can have almost no counters realistically, and that's gonna make you a lot more wins, right? And some people may say, well, that's good because, you know, the higher you go up, you want to have the player that has the better drafts to be able to win and has a better flexibility of units. But at the same time, gear is a pretty big deal, and gearing those type of heroes and gearing all those heroes can actually be hard higher up. The other thing, now the other problem that I didn't mention that kind of stems from all this, it's also the fact that you could say, okay, what if we made it just for the Emperor and above? Well, as you guys know, the Epic 7 matching system is not the greatest, and you sometimes will get pair downs like this all the way down to champion or even lower, to a point where it's like, okay, if you're champion and you're playing against a silver, you can't just have the two prebans only affect the upper ranks, right? So that goes back to the issue of they're just, it would make the barriers to entry a lot higher because it's something you have to implement for all the ranks. It's not something you can implement just for champion, right? It'd be something you have to implement for all ranks, which again adds to that higher level of entry. So at the end, what you would end up seeing is if they actually implemented the two prevent system, what would end up happening is actually you would get drafts that you would just ban your biggest counters and then draft very happily. This would make cleave incredibly strong, and it will make other problematic units that people aren't always banning, like Mediator Cowrick, right, become even stronger because they lose all their other meta contenders that are actually keeping them in check. So it would create another power vacuum, and something's going to pick it right back up, right? So that's the big problem with the current to prevent system, why it wouldn't work if it was to be implemented. But I do have a solution for it, which I think would help, and it would make more sense. And it still doesn't fully address the first issue, but it very much addresses the second issue, that is going to be the target banning as well as the hyper focus banning. What I think should happen is one of your pre-bans should be before you even enter a match. So you should be pre-banning here before you even enter a match. And that way the opponent, when it pops up, you already saw one of the bans your opponent did, and you can adjust your second pre-ban accordingly. That way you, A, can't target ban the opponent because you only get one ban as you normally would, and B, you can't just fully commit to countering one type of unit, because if I see Mediator ban, you can bet I'm going to be banning that AOL the next pre-ban, right? So it's those type of situations where if you can see one of the pre-bans before you actually do your other pre-ban, it would create a situation where you can actually get enough information where you can actually make it so you wouldn't have that second situation where it's just hyper focusing. As far as the unit limitations, it's always going to happen, and there's arguments for both, and I understand completely why a lot of players don't want that, but it's gotten to a point that because Smogget is not going to nerf, we are getting so many heroes that are problematic that if they don't do that, we're just going to end up having problematic hero to problematic hero. Like, for example, A. Robbie, Belian, Celilius, and Mediator, and AOL are all considered problem units that are very worth a pre-ban, right? Because they completely shut down certain strategies. But at the same time, it's something that more units like this are going to be coming out that are going to be force banned, that if you don't introduce a two prevent system, it's just always going to get worse, right? It's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. So yes, even though a larger unit pool will be needed, it's going to add an extra month or two for a barrier to entry for someone that's trying to enter RTA, because they're going to have to not only have meta heroes built, but also off meta picks as well. But again, it will overall make the competitive environment much more exciting and fun, which I understand, you know, it's a very thin balance, but I think they do need to do something about it, right? Especially because they already said they're not nerfing. But that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the two prevent system if you want to see it. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I will see you next time. Peace.